I've been running my current campaign world, Heimland, for the past 4 years or so. It started in a barony called Ramshead. This region was of Anglo-Norman culture, and it was a borderland of a vast empire to the far west. The people here were numerous and lived in relative peace. This peace made them weak. For their ancestors were the strong ones who defeated the roaming tribesmen and the hordes of orcs and all sorts of other things, including the Dark Prince of the Elves. These people had not known war now for 3, maybe 4 generations, until everything changed. The Dark Prince of the Elves was back, and the party were responsible for releasing him. Their campaign lasted a couple of years, but the Dark Prince remained. Whilst their game was going on, I had another group of players start off in a region further, towards the heartlands of this empire, and that was called the Valley of Skarn. They ended up eventually joining the other group in Ramshead before they were forced into the broken lands of the Orc Kingdoms by the Elven Dark Lord. This land was ruled by orcs, and it was the ancient kingdom, or the ancient home of the dwarves of Karator. The leader of this group, a dwarf who was orphaned as a baby, discovered that he is in fact of royal blood, and it is up to him and his companions to fight the orcs and restore their home. This group of adventurers defeated the orcs after a couple of years of play and freed the dwarves from captivity, and their leader, Hector, became their king. But what was next? Another campaign. Over the last 4 years, I've had 6 different campaigns with different players in most of them. I think maybe the same in a couple. But I've had all those campaigns take place in this current world. I've had more than 20 different players engage with my world, and many of them have left a lasting impression actually on the world that they've played in. They have built cities, they have erected castles, they have fought in famous battles, and they have created artifacts and new technologies for the people of the land to use and their descendants to uncover. They have inspired me and have made parts of my world whole. I find it surprising that a lot of DMs move from one world to another. If you get bored of running games in a specific region of your world with a specific culture, well, why not make a new region rather than a new world? You could tie this new region into your existing world. And I think one of the major issues I see is that world builders believe that their world needs to be fully finished for it to be a good world to play in. Consider what the Romans knew of our world during the height of their empire. They knew about Europe as well as parts of Africa and Asia, but they didn't really know shit about the Americas, a whole other continent. And this is basically the equivalent of like a fog of war, right? A mysterious barrier that separates what is known from what is not. When I create worlds, I do it with regions. This could be an area that is the size of France, Germany, or Italy. It could be the size of the Holy Roman Empire, which at certain points included parts of all 3, right? Little parts of eastern France, most of Germany, and northern Italy. And the fact is, throughout history, these regions have had so many independent rulers, even at the same time. The Holy Roman Empire, as I said before, is a great example of that. And whilst, yes, they all kind of paid homage to the current emperor, many of them enjoyed a large degree of autonomy and independence, where they could, declare war on one another and all that kind of stuff. I mean, even France at one point was split into several independent countries or kingdoms or states, which included like Brittany, Burgundy, Aquitaine, and France itself, the Kingdom of France. So, I mean, anybody who's played Crusader Kings or Europa Universalis will know what I'm talking about, and I love my strategy games. So, You know, my point is that even one region can be the basis of a great multi-year campaign if you have the drive and the creativity to create something special. Alternatively, you can do a 6-month campaign in one region and 6 months in the next one. I kind of prefer that, I think, is what I've kind of realised. Being somebody with ADHD, I find myself struggling to focus on one a concept or campaign for a long period of time, to being able to switch campaigns and do the kind of Conan the Barbarian, Robert E. Howard a type vibe where, you know, in this story, Conan's a king and now he's a thief and now he's, you know, a hunter or a sailor or a pirate. That works for me. That's a cool vibe, you know. And I think as a player, that's the thing that's always been missing from my experience is seeing that my deeds have lived on in a world. You know, my story doesn't sound that great if it doesn't get to become history that everyone knows, history that future players will find out about. Being able to start again with a new game as one of my old characters' descendants, or the descendant of one of the other player characters that I was playing with, I mean, that sounds really fulfilling, like being able to play my grandson after I like erected a castle and now he's the castellan or the lord of the castle, right? That just sounds, or maybe his uncle is in charge of it and I've been forced into hiding and I'm in exile, but it is my rightful castle. That just makes for a really cool story, especially if you like politics and intrigue and kicking the crap out of your uncle, you know. I'd love to hear if any of you guys have been able to live out that type of fantasy in a campaign world as a player, so I can live vicariously through you until I can actually play in a game like that myself. You know, what's the point of building a castle or a city if after the campaign finishes, we just move on to a new world and it all gets erased? You know, I want to be able to reap what I sow. I want to experience a world that has been lived in, where real heroes have been forged and not just made behind the screen by the dungeon master. But I think for my next campaign, I am going to do a new continent. I'm going to keep it in the same world, but I'm going to do a new continent. And I want to do an El Dorado type campaign, where the players get to be explorers and sailors, and they get to travel to a new land, a new home, and they get to colonize and basically do what I just said, you know, fight lizard folk and stuff. I've been looking at the Isle of Dread. I'm thinking about running that. I've also been interested in Caverns of Thracia. I'm thinking about merging the two, because I think Isle of Dread, if any of you guys know about the Isle of Dread, it's quite basic. It's even more basic than the Borderlands, you know, the Keep on the Borderlands adventure. So I'm definitely interested in doing something now. You know, I want to have a campaign that is much more swords and sorcery, and I want to learn how to create campaigns and worlds that kind of drive off of that energy. So, you know, I can't deny right now that my campaign worlds and stories just don't really have enough of that. You know, I want more. If you guys are interested in a video where I discuss swords and sorcery at length, as I have been researching it a lot recently, I've got a bunch of supplements and books that I've been reading about the subject. Just let me know in the comment section below. You guys were quite vocal about me doing a survival exploration video as well, and I plan to do that most likely next month. I've been a bit delayed as I have, well, I mean, what's the best way of explaining this? My firstborn son has arrived. We decided to call him Theodore, and both him and mum are very healthy. So, and thank you to all of you guys who've given me well wishes on the birth of my boy. I'm very, very happy, as I'm sure all of you are who are fathers or mothers. It's fantastic. Hopefully he will be the next generation of D&D creators. Maybe hopefully he can do some really good stuff. You know, we'll have to see, won't we? We'll have to see in the next 20 or 30 years. But thanks so much for watching today's video, guys. Make sure you join my Discord if you want to get involved with our community and join our monthly events, Also consider signing up to my Patreon, where you can get access to charts, tables, and other systems to level up your games. I'll see you guys next time on Loki's Lair. Until then.